Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation and such. Yeah, there I am. Anyway, alright, we'll do a comment and then I'll do an update, I guess, on what videos I have made in the last week or so. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I am going to try to change strategy a little, try to go off this platform and attempt to make the argument in other forums. Found one. We'll see how it goes. And I thought for that purpose I'm going to make videos, shorter, little 5-minute ones, pointing out the different arguments, blah, blah, blah. We'll see how that goes. So I'll link to an unlisted 5-minute video, at least the first in a bunch of them that I have to make. And so, for whatever reason, there's no real point in it. I'm not going to get an argument here. It seems kind of obvious that no one's capable of responding in a like manner to my arguments, in the form of a actual video where you actually address what the other person says. So it's just, just I have to wait for that, because that's the only point that where it becomes, I guess it's going to become obvious to viewers that they really don't have a counter argument. I don't even know how to, this is just, well, anyway, so I spent an hour addressing every point made by this guy yesterday, and he's just doing the same old crap, right? This is just like troll behavior, and like half the commenters now on YouTube, it seems, are pretty much just in it for the trolling. So it's really lost any use as a way of communicating. It's just entertainment. It's just for some other purpose. You really shouldn't be doing anything serious, But anyway, you keep calling kinetic energy free energy. Yeah, and they did that 300 years ago. So this is just part of the irony. These people are so ignorant, and yet they're so arrogant. So if they spend any time researching the history, you'd find that that's exactly the arguments were being made back and forth. Because obviously they're two fundamentally different definitions of reality. I mean, if you believe in kinetic energy, momentum's broken. If you believe in momentum, kinetic energy's obviously broken. It doesn't make any sense. It's free energy. So both sides 300 years ago were arguing against the other side, pointing out how yours is a free energy formula. Okay, they would use the argument that, with your theory, perpetual motion is possible. And they all argued that perpetual motion wasn't possible. So Newton, Descartes, perpetual motion's impossible. Leibnizians, perpetual motion's impossible. So they understood that's impossible, and they understood, obviously, that both formulas, viewed from the other perspective, were in fact free energy formulas. So yes, that's why I'm arguing it's a free energy formula, is because you ran away from the argument 300 years ago, essentially, to go play games in palaces, instead of do real physics, play social club games. But the real physics should be argued. All right. Free energy, but I've Googled KE with the term free energy several times. Okay. And no one besides you chooses to characterize KE as free energy. So this is the argument from popularity again. I'm sure you could go the day before Darwin published his book on evolution. I'm sure you wouldn't get too many Google references to the subject either. Doesn't change the truth. Okay. Again, if you'd read the history, if you paid any attention, you'd realize that this is an argument that is totally unfinished. That the silly characterization of it as semantics, that's how they just made it all go away. It's just they just said, oh, we're just arguing word games. It's just semantics, and pretended there was no controversy, which is Ridiculous. All right. So yeah, so this whole comment is basically the argument from your idea isn't popular. Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, it really is, and the whole point is you're basically just being a Christian soldier, and you're showing the typical Christian soldier cowardice. Where you'll take on nobody unless you have a machine gun and they have a stick. Unless the odds are with you, unless you're cheating somehow in the fight, yeah, you run away, and so you're just a typical Christian soldier. You're defending a silly Christian idea by a silly Christian advocate, a fundamentalist religious kook. And you threw it right in the middle of physics, and it was a bad idea back then, it was silly back then, and it's now preposterous. And it's now just says, oh, it just demonstrates you can never overestimate the lack of integrity of the human being, just how big a hypocrite they're capable of being, or how duplicitous, or how much of a slimy, thieving, creepy, unfair brute they can be. And that's all you're proving and demonstrating. You're not making a counter argument. And then he throws into boot some accusations, so we'll deal with those. You are literally putting words in their mouth. No, I'm putting their words in their mouth. So there's absolutely no evidence that I've put any words in their mouth. Yes, the fact that you won't admit what the kinetic energy theory was produced and was the product of a person who said Newton and Descartes' physics is too atheist. Now, I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, okay, beyond the facts. And you won't address those facts. And so you're the one playing the game here, pretending you're defending something that's defendable. As pointed out, you can't link to any evidence. In 300 years, you've compiled no evidence. And you're sitting here arrogantly saying, why don't you just do what we all do and believe in it for no good reason? Okay. When you say they believe in free energy, so I'm saying it sarcastically, clearly. I'm clearly pointing out you can't evade the consequences of the theory. The theory produces circumstances that are clearly free energy if they were true. If it was true that I could step on a lever with 100 joules of energy and produce 200 joules of energy at the other end of the lever, that's free energy. And I can go through the other examples that demonstrate it, but that one's just so obvious. You create systems where more energy comes out than went in. That's free energy. So whether you admit it or not, again, that's your lack of integrity. The fact that you can't admit that it doesn't seem quite right that I can step on a lever with 100 joules of energy and produce 200 joules at the other end, the fact that you can't admit that seems pretty much like free energy, right? Bang, And I pointed this out in yesterday's video, so he just says it, as if I hadn't already argued it and argued it and argued it. It's just such weaselly behavior. All right, you have erased comments. That's just a lie, okay? I delete comments once I've read them, especially when they're stupid, okay, and rude, okay, which they often are. But I read them. Now, there are comments that, no, they're just not worth it. And yes, I use my discretion to decide, how big my feet are. Yeah, that's not relevant. It's not part of the conversation. And people that overtly, like you just did, a lie, okay? I'm not here to erase comments. I spent an entire hour detailing every sentence of your fucking comment, and yet you are rude enough to sit there and accuse me of evading your argument somewhere. I mean, it's so fucking goddamn idiotic that I should delete your comment just for... What the hell is this crap you're whining about? Again, it's so easy for somebody to make a video where they actually counter my arguments. Can you link to a single video doing that? Can you find one where they're not using Photoshop, where they're not quote mining, where they give me the same courtesy I gave you of actually reading what you actually said? I mean, you're such a troll. I mean, such a cheater, such a Christian soldier. Where people say it's not free energy. Well, saying it and doing, and again, I never erased a comment because somebody said it's not free energy. So that's just a pathetic lie. All right. Has anybody argued, presented a single shred of evidence? Do you have any physical evidence? Can you show me it taking 4 times more gas to go twice as fast? Can you show me can you show me where they tie 5-ton trains going 10 miles an hour to 10-ton trains going 5 miles an hour, and they have a tug of war, and the 5-ton train clearly wins? Can you show me them shooting bullets, let's say into a water tank, and they shoot a 2-gram bullet, and then they just same charge, same dynamite, and they shoot a 4-gram bullet and then an 8-gram bullet into the water, and have you shown that clearly the lighter bullet creates more heat? Have you done any of these experiments to demonstrate that any of what you're arguing for or defending has any validity whatsoever? No. You have no evidence. Zero. Okay, isn't that close to the definition of a straw man? No, it's not even anywhere near the definition. How's it the definition of a straw man to say you can say it's not free energy? You can say that putting 200, putting 100 joules of energy down on a lever and producing 200 on the other side is not free energy. You can say it's not, but it's ludicrous to do it because it's overtly free energy. There's no other way to look at it. Joules are energy. They are gold, so to speak. They're the gold of the energy economy. And you sat there and threw $100 of gold on one side, and you got $200 of gold on the other side. That's free money. There's no other way to look at it, and unless you can make an argument, what's the point of saying it? So how have I strawmanned the argument? They say it's not free energy when it obviously produces free energy. Obviously. All right. If you want to argue the argument, yeah, and the way you argue an argument is actually to argue the arguments made. And you've addressed none of the arguments I have made. You haven't addressed the lever argument or the spaceship argument or the train argument, the joule argument. The joule basically proved, okay, kinetic energy is unrealistic nonsense. And so you named energy after a guy who basically created an experiment that demonstrates you're not going to find your free energy. It's not going to work. Because if you put it to a joule test, the joule test will tell you, yes, the 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour has exactly the same number of joules of energy that the 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour has. You can't use straw man. So obviously I'm not using straw man. I'm arguing the critical point of the argument, the same critical point that was argued 350 years ago. And then when you say, well, what else could it be? There we go. So that's not that's not the right thing to say. You're supposed to, when somebody says that, you're supposed to have an answer. And the fact that you can't make an answer of any kind is demonstration of the fact that you lost the argument. You go right back to saying they believe in free energy. Well, what else can it be? If I make a machine where you drop 100 gold coins into the machine and it produces 200 gold coins, I'm going to sell a lot of them, aren't I? Why? Oh, because it's free money. Duh. Okay. No one else is calling KE free energy, so he just repeats the same. You're not popular, therefore you must be wrong. When, unfortunately, the way the current idiocracy is configured, popularity might not be a good thing. Okay. That needs to be emphasized. So that's the best you could do. So after I give you an hour, I present multiple arguments demonstrating how it doesn't work, how you don't have any evidence, and every historical fact is against you. This is the best you could do. This is how you respond to that volume of evidence and logic, is with this mush. Unsigned mush. Okay. And then you accuse me of saying, oh, you don't pay any attention to our arguments. Well, that's because there is no argument here. There's no evidence. There's no citation to any logic or reasoning whatsoever. Just a stupid accusation and a meaningless mush where you claim because I made an argument you don't have to respond to it. So just explain how it's not free money if I double your money. Explain how that isn't free money. All right. So off to the videos. All right. So I think it started with just follow-ups to the Professor Lewin. I call him a clay-brained, unfriendly jerk. And it's just really going over the argument. It's really not specific to Professor Lewin. And the fact that the experiment has been done by others and with all kinds of variance in the quality. And clearly there are experiments of equal quality that have exactly opposite results. So the Arbor Scientific experiment, the same one as the Lewin experiment, comes up with, instead of being above twice as much energy, the second cart leaving with 3/4, it leaves with almost 1/3. So, the results you would expect. If you're going to give back 1/3 this way, you're losing 1/3 of the energy going this way. So clearly, if you had all the energy, you could put half the velocity into the second cart. That's if you kept all of your energy. But the fact that you're giving some back means that you're only going with 2/3 in, so you have to be much lower than a half out in the 2-mass cart. So it's clearly should give any person who believes in kinetic energy some pause to say, gee, why are those results that way? Why isn't this experiment always the same result and consistent? And again, it's so overtly inconsistent with their other theories. So again, when he's doing the experiment where he's supposed to have the carts be inelastic and stick to each other, they don't do it and they bounce. They hit each other and the energy isn't completely transferred, and the results are so much different. So when they do a real elastic experiment, it should just trouble you that they're springs, and they're calling it elastic as if these are hard bodies hitting each other when they're really rubbery things hitting each other. They're batteries, they got little storage devices in between. Conversion devices is what there could be better called, a spring. A spring is capable, like a lever, of being compressed by one ratio of mass to velocity and giving back a different ratio. It can be compressed very slowly and be released very quickly, or it can be compressed very quickly and released very slowly. So it can give back the energy in a different configuration. And that should be, you all should be able to understand that concept and say, well, that makes springs quite different than purely elastic. Anyway, so then the you've been duped video, I think it's just fine. It just explains how, if you did any research at all, if you thought about this at all, you'd realize that they just made a stupid choice 300 years ago. And, it was just in an atmosphere of ignorance, a real tragic mistake. and there's just no reason to sit there and not admit it, fess up to it, and clean the physics, because it's filthy with this wrong idea of magical energy. Then I did a couple of Christmas videos that are of uncertain value. Merry Fluck You, which wasn't very kind, and Nipple Licking Christmas Special. Yeah, so it's a good title. Just, you know, I mean, it's the same argument. You know, it's frankly, I mean, what exactly is the expectation? You know, in terms of, I can only make reasonable arguments. You have been, as an audience, thoroughly unreasonable. To not concede any of it, you know, and not to say, yes, I get it. I get why you don't understand, because frankly, on its face, it does look a little bit frickin' weird. And instead of conceding any of it, just even a tiniest portion of it, you sit there and just obnoxiously ignore the facts, because you don't want to recognize that you're really just Christian soldiers. You're just propagandists defending a Christian idea. A little arrogant Christian man proclaimed a truth, and it's just a silly pile of nonsense. And here you are, pretending science thinks so. Science says so, when there is no science that says so. Your evidence is ludicrously absent. So those arguments have been made too. If this was a trial, you would be quite mockable to be talking about look at the evidence. There's nothing there. You don't have any. All right. And then I guess yesterday's comment video. So it's all quite tedious and irritating, communicating with human beings. You know, not enjoying it at all. And that's, you know, all that can be said. So you're really just demonstrating my point, right? That, you know, human beings really do suck, because you really can't show any integrity at all. Just doesn't matter how. You know, I can sit there and make the perpetual motion machine and it won't work. Okay, and it won't work because your theory doesn't work. And that's clearly going to be the truth. You know, and so what will you say? You'll say, oh no, it doesn't work because you're wrong. No, it doesn't work because you're wrong. All right, because it's not going to do what you say it's going to do. Okay, it won't happen. I won't step on the lever with 100 joules and there won't be 200 joules flying back at me. You know, it won't happen. And it won't happen in the Professor Lewin experiment. It won't happen in the 10-ton train, 5-ton train. It won't happen in the 8-pound bowling ball versus the 16-pound bowling ball. Your theory won't work in every case. And you have no evidence demonstrating it does work. Not one piece of evidence that has any integrity at all. Not one. You can't link me to a single video of a single experiment demonstrating that your predictions, your kinetic energy predictions, are correct. And here you are arrogantly talking shit. Just amazing. So, yeah, that's enough. With it. I'll make my videos, you know, try interacting with a different audience and see what happens. Blah, 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 blah. So, till the next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, there really isn't. There's nothing to say. You can't, you know, I'm offering $3,000 to what you call a professional. And I'm offering to pay, you know, $50, $100 an hour to one of you people who has some knowledge of physics to defend your arguments, to make your arguments, to allow me to interrogate you on the facts, to just present the facts and have you respond with some sort of explanation for why you think your theory works in light of those facts. And you can't, not one of your little Christian soldiers will show up to smite me You know, you can't manage to get one little gladiator to show up. It's pathetic. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'll pause, and I don't think there's no point. It's a moot conversation because you have no integrity as thinking devices. No consistency. You're just duplicitous, hypocritical advocates for nonsense. You're religious kooks. Alright. Decided nothing else is required to say. It's said it all, said enough. Oh, I can't do that. Yeah, I have to transition in some other way. Forgot. Using a different program. So, this has been a draftphysics.com video presentation. Until next time, and such, and so forth, and whatnot. Good enough. Fuck it. God, I hate this planet. Just hate it.